Hi, Love Bug. Welcome to the Naked Yoga Podcast. This podcast is all about incorporating bits and pieces of yogic philosophy and spirituality into your everyday life. I'm your host, Nneka, a graduate student at Columbia University's Spirituality Mind-Body Institute. I'm also a yoga and meditation instructor at a little studio called Core Power Yoga. You may have heard of it. My mission here is to help you nourish your mind, body, and spirit connection. Each podcast episode will begin with a guided meditation, followed by the core of the episode pairing a spiritual concept with science. Lastly, each episode will end with a mindful closure, providing you with actionable steps you can do after listening to deepen your mind, body, and spirit connection. So, without further ado, let's get right into today's episode. And we are live. Okay, hello, my loves. I have been listening to the podcast episodes as they come out, and I don't know what was going on in those first episodes, but I did not sound like myself. I don't know. I felt like I sounded kind of weird, but maybe everyone just sounds a little weird when they are listening to themselves. Anyways, I have missed you guys so much. It's been a while since I've recorded an episode, even though I have been pretty good at getting one up for you guys every week. So we're going to keep going, manifesting good things. So in today's episode, I've actually been really nervous to record this one because it's kind of a big one. What is spirituality? Let's just dive in. But first, of course, we have to start with our meditation. So wherever you are, begin to get comfortable. Begin to feel the ground underneath your feet. Invitation to feel the ground or the earth under your seat as well. Begin to relax your shoulders. Begin to notice the movement in your body as the breath comes in. And as the breath comes out, maybe even relaxing your jaw and releasing your tongue from the roof of your mouth. And if it feels comfortable, if you are able, I would recommend you bring your eyes to a soft gaze or a close. We will come into our meditative state with 5 breaths. Wherever you are, begin to take a nice big inhale in and out. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. 2 more. Inhale and exhale. Last time. Inhale and exhale. Begin to breathe just like you. I want to invite you to begin to imagine a golden light coming from your higher power to the crown of your head, to the tip of your nose, your lips, your chin, going down your neck, shoulders, grazing down your arms, chest, your stomach, resting in your hip space and giving that a little more energy, a little more love before it goes down your thighs, your shins, your ankles. And then finally, it gets to the tips of your toes. This light is filling you with peace, serenity, and calm. I now invite you to begin to imagine this light exiting your body from the bottom of your feet and traveling deep down into the earth, through the crust of the earth, into the core of the earth, connecting you to the golden light that's right in the center of our beautiful planet Earth. This light is now connecting you to the divine and to every being that occupies this planet. I invite you now to begin to envision your ancestors, the ones that have walked this earth before you. What do they look like? Begin to envision your ancestors that are walking this earth in the present, right now with you. What do they look like? And now I finally invite you to think about the future and your descendants, your ancestors that will walk this earth after you. We're all here on the same planet. And we're all here in the here and now. I invite you to begin to ponder the questions. What teachings do your ancestors have for you? What are you here to learn from your ancestors in the present moment? How can you set yourself up to heal ancestral wounds and be a resource for your ancestors yet to come? I want to invite you now to pause the podcast if you want to take some time to ponder these questions a little bit more in earnest, maybe taking out a journal, a pen, and just taking some time to reflect and coming back when you're ready. If you are ready to move on into the next phase of our podcast, discussing what exactly is spirituality, I invite you to begin to come back into your body, and we'll exit just like we entered with 5 breaths. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Twice more. Inhale and exhale. Last time. Inhale and exhale. If your eyes were closed, I invite you to begin to blink them open. Invite movement back into your body, wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes. Just kind of waking yourself back up. All right. I just had a bit of an epiphany. I probably sound so different on this podcast because I'm doing meditations. Like, oh wow, I do have a bit of a different voice when I'm doing meditations versus when I'm just speaking in general. So transitioning out of like meditation Nneka and into regular talky voice Nneka, I feel like I feel like myself. I feel like I'm talking like myself. All right, so what is spirituality? That is very much a loaded question. I do feel like I am uniquely qualified to answer this question as I am a yoga teacher. And for those of you who don't know or are new to this podcast or new to me, I actually am graduating from Columbia University's Spirituality Mind Body Institute in like less than 60 days now. It kind of feels a bit surreal. I literally just handed in like all of my papers and it's kind of crazy. But anyways, so the founder of my program, her name is Dr. Lisa Miller, and she has this beautiful definition of spirituality that I want to share with you guys. It is from her book, The Spiritual Child. If you're interested in buying the book or learning more, I will leave a link to the book in the show notes. Dr. Lisa Miller in The Spiritual Child defines spirituality as an inner sense of living relationship to a higher power, God, nature, spirit, the universe, the creator, whatever your word is, for the ultimate loving and guiding life force. Ooh, that definition is so good because sometimes people can really conflate religion and spirituality, and you do not need to be religious in order to be spiritual. In fact, there is a researcher, oh my God, I'm forgetting her name, but she is also at Columbia and she does a lot of research on atheists and like atheism and spirituality, because a lot of atheists do still have like a spiritual practice, but it's usually more tied to like nature. So anyway, like whatever you want to call your God, whatever you want to call your higher power or your higher self, your relationship to them is completely up to you. You don't have to like align with this organized religion. Although I will say, after being in the Spirituality Mind Body Lab, I did find it really fascinating that spirituality is actually, when it is passed down intergenerationally, so like mom, dad, child, grandparent, what have you, it actually ends up being like so much more protective for diseases of despair, like depression, anxiety, things of that nature. But I digress. Your relationship to your higher power, to your higher self, is going to be beneficial, whether it's intergenerational or not, whether it's in an organized religious community or not. Like, it is going to help you have resilience, like really just like kind of weather life's challenges and storms and deal with like ambiguity, which is honestly one of the biggest things that causes people like anxiety, just like not knowing what's going to happen next, which is just kind of like a way of life, if I'm being completely honest. Also, a practice that I found extremely beneficial is journaling, like directly to my higher self or my higher power. This method of journaling kind of allows me to view my thoughts from like an aerial view and to understand what truly is important in this life. Like sometimes when I'm just dear diary, oh gosh, I'll just ramble about like the most like unnecessary things. But when I'm like, dear God, or like dear higher power, or dear higher self, I'm no longer going to write like a paragraph complaining about the lady who like cut me off in Starbucks. I'm now going to kind of prioritize like what I actually really care about in this life and what I think is worthy of the higher power's attention or my higher self's attention. And that within itself is just such a different way of thinking and operating. It really allows you to just not to take things too personally, especially with my form of spirituality or how I practice spirituality. One of my favorite mantras to tell myself is that everything is unfolding for the greatest good of all beings on this planet. So while this situation didn't work out for me the way I wanted it to, I know that this rejection is allowing someone else to reach their fullest potential. You know, I don't even know if I told you guys this, but I just found out that I got into a doctoral program. So I'll be going to George Washington University to get my doctorate degree in psychology, which I think means I need to redo the introduction to this podcast. But I said that to say, like, while I am so happy that I got into George Washington and I'm really looking forward to this next step, George Washington was the last school I heard from. Meaning that before I heard from George Washington University, I got 7 rejections. I got rejected from every other university I applied to. Every single one. Like, by the time I got the letter from George Washington University, I was so jaded that I was just like, probably just another rejection. Do I even need to bother like to read this? And so that's so silly. But I'm just saying that to say, like, ambiguity and like rejection sometimes is like the best thing to happen for you. Like, now I don't have the like anxiety of choice. Like, if I want to get my doctorate degree, here's the path. If I don't, I could not go, but I want to go. So this is my path. And so I'm really excited about it. But sometimes, oh my gosh, and it was so funny because I was just talking. I'm rambling a little bit, but I think this is necessary. I was talking to my like doula training cohort. I do the most, guys. I really do way too much. But we're talking about rejection as protection, but then also understanding when the universe is testing how much you want something, like your drive and your determination, and the discernment that it takes to understand the difference. When I tell you guys, I got 7 rejection letters, and in my mind, I was already like, okay, next year, instead of applying to 8 schools, I'm going to apply to 12. Where are the other schools that I want to add to my list? Like, I literally was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep on going. But who knows? Like, maybe if I would have gotten an 8th rejection, maybe that could have been a sign that, you know, getting my doctorate wasn't in the cards for me. Like, that wasn't what the universe had in store for me. So I also think, wow, we are so off topic, but I really think it's important to kind of take the time to listen to your inner voice, listen to your intuition, and to build that relationship with your higher power, whatever that looks like for you. So you can begin to have that discernment between, oh, this rejection is protection. Oh, it's a pause. Like, it's a yes, but not right now. Or this is your path. We just want to see like how much you want this. Like, we want you to work for it a little bit more. So yeah, having that discernment, I think, really comes from just having a really, really strong relationship with your higher self, with your internal spirituality, being able to quiet the noise and really tune in to what your inner wisdom is telling you. And that actually kind of leads us to the next topic. So as we talk about this concept of what is spirituality, mindfulness is honestly right there. Like, how can we not talk about that? So I also want to share from you one of my favorite definitions of mindfulness, which comes from Grace Unfolding, which actually is a very long title. So let me just read it. Grace Unfolding, Psychotherapy in the Spirit of Tao Te Ching, which, oh gosh, am I pronouncing that right? It might be Tao Te Ching. Either way, I apologize for any mispronunciation. This is honestly one of my favorite books on spirituality. And also what I really love about this book, which is also a little bit of a side note, what I really love about this book is that they rotate the gender in which they speak of God or the universe or the higher power. So in like one chapter, they'll use masculine pronouns, and then the next chapter, they'll use feminine pronouns. And I just love that so much. And sometimes they use like non-binary pronouns, but I just like flabbergasted because God is a woman is a very controversial topic in some groups of people. You know, the patriarchy does not like that. But I really, really love the way that this book talks about spirituality and the way they alternate between the pronouns. So I highly recommend this book, and I'll also leave it in the show notes if you're interested in learning more. In this book, oh my gosh, I like ate the mic. In this book, mindfulness is defined by becoming mindful, has to do with letting go of ambitions to control, solve problems, or achieve something. Instead, we choose to bear witness. Bear witness to what, right? Bear witness to our lives. It goes similarly with like the higher power, higher self journaling that I was saying, like bearing witness to your life. Like there's so many times when I am so guilty of this. I am a planner. I love to plan things. I will plan my week, I will plan my day, and I'll plan it by the hour. I'm booking out my fitness classes on Sunday, from Sunday to Sunday, literally. Like I love it. I'm like meal prepping, picking my recipes, doing all these things, trying to have this kind of fake control, like this facade of control over my life. We have no control over our lives. Literally none. And like the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can just let things go. And sometimes, honestly, wow, we love a good ramble. I hope you guys find this entertaining. Honestly, like one thing that stuck with me and that's coming to my mind now is oftentimes our senses of like anger or disappointment in other people comes from that person not acting the way we want them to. Us trying to exert our control over our lives over other people as well. Do you know what I mean? Like trying to be like, oh, like I think it's kind of weird that like you didn't call me first, because if I was in that situation, I would have called you. Just because you would have done something doesn't mean the other person would have done it. And this is something my mother says to me all the time. She's like, you're a very good person and I love you so much, but you cannot expect people to act the way you do. And the older I get, the more I'm seeing it. I'm like, oh, wow, I actually am a really good moral person. And sometimes I attract people that take advantage of that, because not everyone has good intentions and some people need help. But vengeance is the Lord's. And yeah, you just kind of have to let that go. So let me get back to the script, because I've just been talking to you guys. In life, so much of anguish, anxiety, and depression comes from trying to control outcomes. Okay, we're on the script, we're not too far off. So envisioning a path for our life and then being determined to follow it through despite roadblock after roadblock. And that kind of goes to what I'm saying, like having that inner wisdom, that discernment between like, is this a rejection in the form of protection, or is this what I'm really supposed to be doing and it's just not my time just yet? So really kind of focusing on developing that inner discernment. So synchronicity is actually a term that was coined by Carl Jung, and essentially it is, I have definitions here. I'll just read them. Okay, to describe circumstances that appear meaningfully related yet lack a causal connection. That's from a really old article by a Pete that I am not too familiar with. And here's another definition. I believe this one is from Lisa. Yes, it is. It's from Dr. Lisa Miller. So when events in your inner and outer life are linked by expressions of the same event. She also provides examples, but I want to kind of protect her privacy. Well, I mean, I guess if she published it in a book. Okay, we're going to go into examples. So a little bit of a backstory. In her book, This Isn't a Spiritual Child, this is actually The Awakened Brain. She talks a lot about how she struggled to conceive a child. So as she defines synchronicity, 1, when events in your inner and outer life are linked, expressions of the same event, such as when I dreamt about losing the baby and then miscarried the next day. Second example, when two or more events in your outer life are linked expressions of the same event. For example, a man on the bus, I'm going to add a little bit more context here, but a man on the bus said that, oh, like you look like you would adopt a lot of children. And then later her mom calling her to talk about international adoption. And then 3, when events experienced by different people are linked expressions of the same event. So in this example, she saw an orphan on TV talking about his desire to be loved at the same time that her and her husband were searching for a child to love. So these are very, very good examples of what synchronicity is. A more common example that I think people can relate to, especially in this digital age, is when you're thinking about someone and then they call you or they text you, or somehow they just kind of like manifest into your life as soon as you had that thought about them. So that thought being your inner world, and then that person showing up being manifested in your outer world. And so synchronicities can happen honestly at any time, at any place. And oftentimes I view synchronicities as a way that the universe is saying, like, you are on the right path, you know, like kind of confirming that, one, you're not in this universe alone. You're not on this planet alone. People around you are also going through the same things that you're going through. But 2, they could also be like kind of little guideposts to your paths. Like, I don't think it was a coincidence that when I was doing my 200-hour training and like rethinking what I want my life to look like, that one of the girls in my training was graduating from this program at this time. I also don't think it's a coincidence that as I'm recording this, it is 11/11/11. So let's also take some time to talk about angel numbers. I don't know if angel numbers would be categorized as a synchronicity or not. Maybe. I'm going to have to do some digging on that. But essentially, angel numbers are signs from the universe. And as I say signs, I look at my book and I look on my counter and I have the book Signs, The Sacred Language of the Universe by Laura Lane Jackson here on my counter, which talk about synchronicity, talk about signs, and it is still 11/11. Wow. Okay. I feel like I am exactly where I'm meant to be, and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So angel numbers are typically numbers in sequence. So 1111, 222, 333. It goes on and on and on, etc. They can also be numbers that are in like a miss sequence or some type of repetitive nature. So it could be 121212 or 17772 or like whatever it is. Like if you are seeing like a sequence of numbers frequently, it's most likely your angels or your ancestors like communicating to you and either confirming that you're on the right path and you're exactly where you're supposed to be, or maybe just trying to get your attention and say hi, if I'm being honest. Signs is actually a really good book, and now we're really getting off topic, but Signs is by a psychic medium. Her name is Laura Lynn Jackson, and she really specializes on connecting children who have passed with their parents that are still in this realm. And what's really interesting, and honestly, I think this might be a synchronicity happening right now. We started this meditation talking about our ancestors, but in the script, I really didn't lay out anything to talk about communicating with our ancestors. And now we're here. So Jackson talks a lot about how you can create your own signs and symbols with your loved ones that are no longer on the physical plane. And so angel numbers have a lot to do with that, because even sometimes I mentioned that it doesn't have to be a number in a perfect sequence. There's a really beautiful example in this book about an individual who their angel number ended up being their child's birthday. So whatever the child's birthday was, they would just see it everywhere. And this book has also really kind of altered the way that I even think of insects. Growing up, I was always really grossed out and scared of insects, but insects actually have their own spiritual meanings and small things, right? So like insects, coins, I'm trying to think. Also like technology, like devices, things that are kind of like on electromagnetic frequency, things like that are really easy for our ancestors on the spiritual plane to kind of manipulate and like communicate with us. So I don't want to give the whole book away, but there's a lot of examples of even this woman, her dad had passed, and somehow, some way, she got a text from her father saying like, I love you. However, he had died like months prior, and the phone that they had for him was literally turned off in like a kitchen drawer. Like no one had used it in like years. Like it was kind of just like an abandoned phone. And so it was just really interesting that like, oh wow, like my dad is sending me messages from the other side. And really take the time to like communicate with your ancestors and make your own like kind of signs with them, right? So if there's another example in the book, oh my gosh, now this podcast is just about signs. A really beautiful example about a woman who husband had passed away, and they had a mutual fondness of rainbows. And so when she began dating someone else, she was like, talking to her husband, just as I'm talking to you now, you can also talk to your ancestors. So I like to talk to like my granddaddy, who's like no longer here. Like, I don't know. I talk to myself a lot. That's why I have a podcast, but I also like to talk to my ancestors too. But it was beautiful because she's like driving down the car. She had a first date with this guy. She like didn't know if she was ready to move on. And then her husband, like literally as she was thinking about this, sent her not just one rainbow, but a double rainbow. Like the rainbow was rainbowing. And then it was so funny too, because the medium was like, hey, like your husband and his friend are like teaming up, like they're trying to get you connected. And it was funny because his friend, they were both passed. His wife had actually introduced her to this guy, but she didn't like realize. And then it gets even trippier. Like her friend's husband had actually sold him like the motorbike that he had. So anyway, it's a really good book. And if you are interested in like kind of connecting to your ancestors on a spiritual level, like you definitely can. You can have a conversation with your ancestors just as I'm having a conversation with you right now. We are so far off track. But yeah, it's really good. And if you guys are interested, maybe we can do an entire episode just about like signs and spirituality. I do want to touch on insects once again, because I think I started to talk about it and then I got diverted, and I want to come back to the insects again. But my relationship with insects has completely changed from when I was a kid. I was completely disgusted by insects. And now I've just been getting so many good signs from insects. Like the one that I see the most, honestly, is the dragonfly. And you can take the time to look up, your spiritual meaning of dragonflies on your own. But every time I see one, I'm just like reassured, like, okay, like this is it. I'm here. Also like grasshoppers. And recently I saw my first scorpion, and I'm a Scorpio, and I was like, oh my God, it's me in bug form. Is a scorpion even a bug? I think so. Who knows? Let me get back to the script. What are we talking about? Oh, okay. So getting back to synchronicities. So I hope you guys understand the definition. Essentially, it's like the universe kind of confirming like, yes, what you're thinking is on the right track, or this is the right next step for you. So as you think about your spirituality and you think about cultivating more mindfulness, like letting go of your need to control things, this hopefully will open your eyes to notice those synchronicities, to notice when things are kind of just falling into place, to notice when like the universe is basically giving you a sign. All right. I think I have been talking for a very long time. So I think this is going to be the end of episode 4. What is spirituality? I hope you guys feel like you have a good definition. I hope you feel like you learned something. And if you do have any questions or comments, I believe there's like a Q&A feature in Spotify. But if you're not seeing it, I honestly don't know how this works. You can just find me on Instagram at Nneka, and you can leave me a DM or you can comment on my latest Instagram post, and I am more than happy to chat with you there. But yeah, so I feel good. I feel great. I'm really happy that we did this. I want to wrap this up with our mindful closure, which I'm not sure if I mentioned it. I probably have, but even the concept of mindful closures I learned about from Linda Lantieri. She is a social and emotional learning professor at Columbia University. And honestly, if you have the opportunity to be in the same room with her, take it. She is just a ray of light, like just the way that she truly and deeply cares about each and every one of her students. I love you, Linda. So for our mindful closure, I invite you to reflect on some synchronicities that have occurred in your life. How has your higher self and your higher power been trying to communicate with you? What clues to your aligned path may you have missed? And lastly, how can you let go and begin to be a witness in your life? So letting go of the need to control and just being along for this crazy ride of life that we're on. So if you want to journal about these, I highly recommend. Once again, I'll repeat the questions. How has your higher self and higher power been trying to communicate with you? What are some synchronicities that have occurred in your life? What clues to your aligned path may you have missed? That's kind of a hard question to answer, but do some thinking. And how can you let go and begin to witness your life? I like that last one the best. All right, my loves, until next time, make sure I'm like, comment, subscribe. I think you just follow the podcast. Just press the button, leave me a review. I would really love that. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Naked Yoga Podcast. My name is Nneka, and if you want more content from me, you can follow me on Instagram or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Nneka. This is a completely independent podcast. Yes, I write the scripts, record, and edit the podcast all by myself. Therefore, any support you could give, like a share, a comment, maybe leaving a little review on Apple Podcast or wherever you might be listening, would go a very long way and warm my little itty bitty heart. Thank you so much once again for listening, my love bug. I will see you in the next episode.